Well, welcome back to Brain Hope Reality. The last episode was Dave the Dead in San Miguel Allende. Today we're in beautiful LA. It's a little overcast. I'm meeting with some amazing people about possibly setting up specialized treatments here. But you know, the podcast goes on. So I have the honor to have Tom Davies on today. He was kind enough to invite me to his podcast. So I thought it'd be really interesting to bring some of his perspectives to this podcast. He comes to us from Liverpool, and maybe he can give us a little background about mental space, what your perspective, how you're involved in it, and we can dive in. What do you think?
That sounds great, Eugene. Yeah, and thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
having me. It's lovely to see you again, mate. Lovely to see
Nice
you
to
again.
see you.
So yeah, as a way of introduction, I always like to say, my most important jobs is I'm a husband and I'm a father. They're my two most important jobs. My day job, I work for a mental health nonprofit in the community here in Liverpool. And then how we met, and probably what I'm a bit better known for, I suppose, is my podcast, which is called Proper Mental. I've been hosting that for they're coming up on 5 years, 200 and something episodes. And each week I talk to someone about a different aspect of mental health or mental illness or well-being or kind of anything in and around this space at all. And I spoke to all sorts of people, and sometimes to a quote unquote expert or someone with a lot of experience in one field, sometimes lived experience, anything from, I don't know, authors, activists, campaigners, anyone I meet who is remotely interested. I'll try and get him on. I'm on for a chat, and that's of course how we met, Eugene.
Thank you. So I am interested where the name came from. How did you name your podcast?
It's
Very British.
yeah, very much so. Yeah. So when I it's kind of all came about from my own lived experience of being mentally unwell, of my own struggles. And when I first started struggling and first started becoming ill, I didn't have words for my experience. I didn't really know what mental health was. I didn't know about anything at all, really. I'd never watched documentaries or read books or anything. My only reference for what I thought was happening was things like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and these type of like media portrayals of madness. And I knew something wasn't right. And I said to my wife, I feel like I'm going proper mental. So in the UK, particularly kind of in the northwest, I think, particularly like in working class people, we would say proper. So if I'm really hungry, I'd say, oh, I'm proper hungry, or I'm proper thirsty. So yeah, I just felt like I was going sort of proper mental, really. And that's the only words I had for it at the time. I've used lots of different words over the years as I've come to understand my experience more. But at that time, that's the best I could do.
I love the term. So let me ask you this question. I love that term. At what age did you find out that you were proper mental, and what was the impetus? What was the light bulb moment? Like, I have a mental issues, or I'm proper mental. I'm going to use that term. If you don't mind, I'm going to.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a proper good term, right? It's so
I'm proper
in
hungry today.
so yeah, in 2016, my son was born, and up until that point, I would have said that I had no sort of issues with my mental health at all. I mean, that was kind of untrue once I unpicked it later through therapy and things like this, and came to understand my experience. I mean, it was clear I've been kind of anxious my entire life, really, since I was a kid, certainly. Probably experienced periods of what could be called depression and things like that over that time. I've always thought this was my personality. I just thought I was a bit odd, and I did my best not to ever tell anyone about that, because the last thing as a teenager you want to be thought of is different to everybody else, right? So I just
Yeah.
kind of accepted this as me. And then in 2016, my son was born, and I think a mixture of this melting pot of very unsturdy foundations of identity, mixed with all the usual parenting stuff of stress and no sleep and things like that, and something broke. It felt like just something just broke, and I started to my emotions started to feel really, really strong, very extreme, very out of my control. Stress levels through the roof, and I would regularly be like emotional and tearful. and these were not things I understood. I'd never really allowed myself to kind of. It was like the dam broke. I kind of describe it as there was a leak in my basement, and I never went down to the basement to check for leaks because I didn't know you were supposed to look after your basement, right? And the leak just kept dripping away and dripping away, and then one day, my son comes along, that pipe just burst, and the basement just flooded, and it ruined the foundations, and the house fell down. It just kind of that probably lasted about 4 years. I probably bounced around in and out of crisis. I within that time, I tried to hurt myself a couple of times. There was a lot of suicidal ideation, a lot of suicidal thoughts. And it was a planned suicide attempt that was actually interrupted by a family member, that kind of led to me actually getting some sort of help and starting to rebuild. And it was a case of first getting functional again and just getting to the point where I could take part in my life again and go back to work and just, be a father, be a husband, be a friend, be all the things I needed to be. And once I kind of steadied the ship in that way, then it was a case of kind of like, well, what just happened and why did it happen and what can we do to make sure it doesn't happen again? And that's an ongoing journey of different things. But I like to think the worst of it is well and truly behind me.
So let me ask you a question. Well, first of all, thanks for sharing. I mean, that's pretty painful. My mother took her life. I think we discussed that. You may not remember it. When I was 21. So I actually had suicidal thoughts, excuse me, when I was 6. I've struggled with that for a long time. I don't struggle with that anymore, and we can talk about some of the modalities we used. Recently, we were doing a interview with people, and I've taken care of a lot of military personnel, which I think I told you about.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things that was interesting, one of the guys who supported my organization, Raise PTSD now, which is our organization, which is a non-for-profit, but we treat a lot of people through. He said, we talked to a suicide attempt survivor, and I'm coming to the question. And the suicide attempt survivor, basically said, I just wanted to die for a little bit. I just want to get out of this horrible pain. I don't think about forever. It was so painful at the time. Taking my life is worth it because it's too painful. Would you say that's pretty much what you were in? Is that the state you were in when you were attempted suicide?
Yeah, very much so. It's like it's the repeating cycle of, even though I'd like feel a bit better for a bit, then eventually it would just come back around because I never changed anything, right? So I just
Right, because
eventually these things pass.
as you look down the barrel of life, this is a lifestyle, and that's not lifestyle I want to live. Is that basically the perspective?
Yeah, that's it. I regularly used to think around about that time I would have been about 35, and I remember thinking like, I'm not even halfway through my life, and the idea of doing another 35 years of this is too much to bear. Like it was like a life sentence, like looking forward, I can't I cannot keep doing this for another 35 years. It's just, I didn't know how to change it. I didn't know how to do anything differently. I didn't know what to do. Even if I had, I was very scared to do it. There's kind of like there's almost a safety in that darkness, I think, right? It's like my world right now is shit, but I know every inch of that shit. So I'm in here, I'm safe, and I didn't want to step out of it. I didn't want to change anything to step out, right? So
So
it trapped me.
it's like devil, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think you felt the feeling of doom, like something bad is going to just keep happening?
Yeah, yeah. It felt very it's really hard to put myself back into those shoes now,
No,
right? Because I kind of
I'm not
have a
trying to
very
push you back that way. Sure, yeah.
no, not in there's not like no like there's no emotional fear around it. It's just I feel like a different a different man. It's sometimes like I'm telling someone else's story. I'm so far from it on a on a emotional level, right? Um but yeah, there was it was just that feeling of like I just can't keep doing this. I I couldn't think of ways to change it. I didn't know what to do to change it, and and I like it. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd get out of bed and I would just have that feeling, and I'd think, "Oh fuck, it's going to be another day." Like I didn't. It was just a lottery over whether I felt good or bad. I felt like I had no control over it.
let me ask you this question. So, of everything you've tried, what do you think was the most effective so far to date? What of just everything? One
Mm,
or two specific modalities, or doesn't have to be medical. Just walking in the park, looking at trees. I don't know.
yeah, I think that the biggest shift for me to get past an anxious mindset was flipping a switch away from fear and into curiosity. Essentially, I swapped fear for curiosity. So instead of being scared of what might happen, I learned to become curious about what might happen. And that took a lot of work. I did that through therapy, um, but kind of therapy as a way of identifying things I could do differently and then acting on them. When they say doing the work, it was doing the work that changed. But that was kind of what I worked towards, was learning to let go. I think from a fear based mindset, I was constantly trying to predict every millimeter of my environment and experience at all times. I was always trying to control every outcome. I was trying to, always trying to make sure nothing unexpected happened. And just learning to trust that, you know what, it'll kind of be okay and it'll work it out, and to trust my self to, no matter what happens, I'll figure it out. I'll make the right decision in the moment. And if I don't make the right decision, it doesn't really matter anyway. I'll get another go at it.
So let me ask you a question. So that's a great, actually, parlay of what I my particular knowledge base is in. But the question is, it's not easy just to snap from being fearful continuously to like, oh, okay, so don't worry about it. I mean, that's how I am now. It's like, yeah, I'll deal with it, whatever. It doesn't. We'll get through it. But what do you think was? You think it was just the therapist, or something clicked in your head, or what do you think? Why were you able to make that switch? That's the question. Or
So
how
it's
were
a
you able to
it's
make?
a yeah, it's a great question. I think so. Really good advice I had from the therapist that I still work with now was to be more immediate. And so, like, how I've come to see it as how you do how you do the little things is how you do the big things. So this is what I work on, the people that I work with. So these big changes, mindset shifts, they don't come by doing one big thing. They come by doing loads and loads of little things again and again and again, to essentially like retrain yourself. So for me, it was every time there was something where I could feel my anxious brain be fearful about it, then I would ignore that and push through it straight away in that moment. So it was constantly recognizing when I was resisting life. So maybe I'm in a restaurant with my kids and we ask for the bill, and we've been waiting 10 minutes and my kids are starting to get angry and everything's kind of going, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to ask again in case they think I'm rude, and they're clearly having a bad day. I don't want to stress them. And as soon as I thought like that, it'd be like, no, I'm going to go and ask for the bill. And I'd still do it politely and nicely, and the chances are the lady waiting the table, she just forgot. She just, the fellow behind the bar, he just forgot, and I can remind him, and he's, oh, thanks for reminding me. But so it was those little things, those little steps, and every time I recognized my resistance to something, then I would step into that resistance. I would lean straight in. I wouldn't give myself a chance to overthink it. And then,
Yeah, I
sorry.
think that's exactly right. No. You're right. So what I'm trying to do is I look at it from biological perspective. So let me just give you a couple of interesting pieces of data.
Please.
Goes through my mind as I'm listening to you. So one, so there's a disease or condition called pheochromocytoma. I assume you've never heard of it. It's an exotic type of tumor of the adrenal gland. One out of 10,000 people get it. So it has three symptoms. It produces norepinephrine, so it's a brother of epinephrine or adrenaline. So PTSD and anxiety is controlled by epinephrine or norepinephrine. So when people have that tumor, it produces too much norepinephrine. Three symptoms. Symptom number one, headaches. Symptom number two, extremely high blood pressure. You can get a stroke from it, stuff like that. But symptom number three is my most interesting one. This feeling of doom. Feels like something bad is going to happen from the adrenal, right? Not, it's not a brain thing, it's adrenal by the kidneys. And if you take out the tumor, feeling of doom goes away. So what I mean by that is it shows you that there's a biologic hormonal control of that. It's not, a lot of people are still struggling that mental health is, we can snap out of it. It's not real. Does it really exist? All of that. which is really a problematic way of looking at it. Now, when you talked about trying to predict the future and trying to avoid any kind of instability, right? So let me introduce you to my favorite part of the brain. It's called amygdala. Starts with A. So amygdala's job is to predict danger, predict anxiety, predict all of that. So if you're an antelope, which, antelopes, humans, rats, dogs, they all have amygdala. There's no difference. It's perception of stress. So if here's a little click, now the amygdala goes, oh my God, you're going to have a predator eat you, and starts running without seeing anything. But to me, in my mind's eye, your amygdala was working over time. And the best way to suppress amygdala function is to activate a PFC, prefrontal cortex, which is here. So when you were able to overcome your fear or your discomfort going to talk to the waitress, every time you do it, you grow new fibers. It gets stronger. It's like a muscle. So if you do it 5 times, 6 times much easier. It's much easier to run away second or third time than the first time, right? Or it's much easier to have, strength, mental strength to stand up to bully or whatever. So the point is, it's neurologically, it makes tremendous amount of sense. And it's interesting how you were able to do it. So when I was a kid, I had a lot of issues. I mean, I really didn't like neuroscience particularly, not as much as was known, but I've learned the same thing, which is interesting, was consistency. So I would put myself in uncomfortable conditions where I knew I was going to be uncomfortable, and then get through it, and then go through that one. Then you go to the more powerful one and go to the next one. In my career, I did kind of the same thing. I went to the hardest surgical training in the country at the time to put myself through it. Unfortunately, my mother took her life when I started it, so that did not help me very much. But overall, it gave me an amazing. So as I became an adult and recovered, and I had my treatments, whatever, I was able to, like, basically, like, my son just, whenever we get in, it's like, we go through it, whatever it is. I mean, okay, being nervous doesn't help. Being in control helps a lot, but you can control loosely, right? If you try to
Mm.
very tightly control, then you get anxious. But it's like, we'll deal with that, whatever comes. And most of the time, nothing bad really comes. If something bad comes, you deal with it. It's like, whatever. So I missed it. Well, it's not the worst thing in the world, right? You can always deal with that. And do you do much self-talk, you think? Like, this is really not that bad, or, we've been through that. How you doing? All of that. Do
Yeah,
you do
yeah,
much?
definitely. Yeah. I mean, even now I might catch myself, like overthinking a situation or doubting myself or something. And not, I don't think in an extreme way, just in a human way, right? As we do before a big challenge.
Being a
And
human being.
yeah, yeah. And, something else that like it, what was really beneficial for me was learning to have compassion for myself. So now if I do feel those doubts, or if I do make a mistake, or if I do back myself and then end up saying something ridiculous and making a fool of myself, then I have compassion, and I just, I can laugh about it. I can pick myself back up. I can give myself a bit of time to just kind of like wallow in my own embarrassment. But I always do it with, come on, mate, like, at least you tried. Come on, let's go. Rather than the old me would have been like, oh, you fucking piece of shit. You fucked it up again, all this sort of stuff. But like, I'm much more finding that self-compassion doesn't mean I let myself off the hook. Compassion is not giving everything easy. Compassion is sometimes doing the hard thing, but like, I suppose I've got my own back is how I see it now.
It's funny. So there's a lot of people have, it's like, be a hero of your own story. All of them. There's a lot of being said like that. My mother had a great saying. She said, "Don't say anything bad about yourself. Somebody will do it for you." Thank you.
It's true, right?
So
Yeah.
what's the best joke you tell yourself?
Best joke I tell myself. Crikey.
Uh,
Oh, you put me
I
on
like
the.
humor. I mean, humor is amazing. It deactivates amygdala.
Yeah, yeah, it's high vibe, right? Humor's high vibe. I don't know if I
Yes.
have a specific joke maybe, but I'm more than happy to to laugh at myself. So if I do get something wrong or make a mistake or say words and they come out wrong, I used to really worry that my words had come out wrong. If somehow I would offend you, somehow, like, like for some reason I'd spit my words out wrong and I'd say something about your country of origin, and then you'd hate me and all this sort of stuff. And like, I think rather than a specific joke, more just like when I get something wrong, I can just laugh. It's just because it's funny, right? It's just a mistake. It doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. Hilarious. So I'll tell you,
Yeah.
kind of, my wife and I have been through a lot of scrapes, and we got through it because we were able to laugh. So I'll tell you my favorite. You probably have never seen this episode, but have you ever watched Friends? Have you watched that show?
Yeah, yeah.
So there was one when Rachel was trying on a wedding dress, and her boyfriend came by, and he was kind of very skittish. So he came by and he just wanted to pick her up, and he was very frightened about the relationship. She opens the door and she is in a wedding dress with a bouquet. And he starts running like crazy. So Rachel like closes the door. She goes, "What? That ought to do it." Meaning he's gonna be gone. So
Yeah.
whenever we have like piling up crap, and something crazy happens, so we look at each other, that ought to do it. So that's our kind of to go to reference, and that's a beautiful thing about being married for a number of years to an amazing woman. Hey, whenever something like that come up, that ought to do it.
That ought to do it.
You've gone through so
Yeah.
much craziness, which I think a lot of couples start bickering, they're fighting each other, and that's obviously terrible for you. It's terrible for the wife. It's terrible for the kids. It's terrible for everybody involved. So it's interesting that how you adopted. So what was the best advice you think your therapist gave you?
I think that, so something I really like that I say quite a lot, which is a direct quote, is that there's a difference between being looked at and being seen. That was a direct quote from my therapist. And I used to find that I could, through my podcast, I often get invited to speak and do talks and, all these sorts of things. And for my job, I do a lot of education stuff. I can stand in rooms full of people and have to know what I'm talking about. And I could do that quite easily, hardly any nerves at all. But then if you said to me, "Oh, me and a couple of friends are going for coffee. Do you want to come with us?" I'd be like, I don't know if I can do that. And often I'd say, yeah, yeah, definitely. And then I'd cancel at the last minute and not go, right? Because I was nervous. And there was this real like sort of contrast between how could I do some things that public speaking that people would find really scary, but then how could I not just go for like coffee with a couple of people that of acquaintances. And it was that saying, there's a difference between being looked at and being seen, because when I'm in front of a crowd, I'm being looked at. It's nothing to do with me. I know what I'm talking about. I've got good words for it. I can get my point across. There's no judgment there, right? I'm the expert in the room, quote unquote expert. I don't really believe in them, um, but then when I'm sat around a table, well, then I'm being seen, right? Then it's me as a person that's being seen, my ideas, my opinions, and the anxiety around that's where I had to do the work. That's where I had to stop hiding behind
That's amazing.
the persona and the presentation, right?
Huh, that's interesting. I assume that's gotten better over time.
Yeah, I'll go coffee with anyone. Me, I'm not fussed, but yeah, that was a
That's
that was a big shift I had to
fascinating.
get through. Yeah.
That's interesting. It never occurred to me because I've never had that I haven't had an issue with, but whatever. We all have our things. But it's interesting how you adapted to that. So you're still doing therapy.
I
So
still
what
go,
would be
yeah.
mhm.
I
So
go now for the exploration, right? So I think that when I go to therapy, I've got someone to hold me accountable, someone to pull me up on my shit. Um, like I go because it's fun. I go because it's fun to learn about myself. I like the challenge of doing things differently. I think it makes me a better husband. It makes me a better dad. It makes me a better community worker, just an all round better human being. But there's no dependency there, right? It's fun for me to go and to joust and to dodge and to get pinned up on my ideas and these sorts of things. There's no emotional need for it, I suppose.
so how about we're kind of getting to an end of it soon. The question is top five recommendation for people for to help their anxiety and your methods, because my methods are invasive, right? I just have to stick a needle in the neck. Yours actually is lived experience. So what do you think your top five would be?
Compassion, definitely. I think
for
compassion in
yourself?
everything. Yeah, for yourself. And funnily enough, once you learn how to hold compassion for yourself, you find it a lot easier to hold it for other people. And I think if we can learn to hold compassionate for ourselves, I think the world would change, quite
Yeah.
drastically in how we treat each other. Right. That's a podcast for another day. But yeah, to build that self compassion, which helps to build trust in yourself. I think that's really, really important. I think education is really key, right? The best way to solve a problem is to understand it, and having a really like entry level knowledge into what is anxiety, how does it work, like what's going on in the brain and these sorts of things. I think that's really, really important because you can almost start to notice things happening in real time, and if there's if you know something's happening, then it's much easier to bring in some sort of intervention to sway what's happening and things like that. So I
Let
think
me ask
that's
you a
really good
question.
for people.
What would you recommend for people to get this entry level education? Because stuff. I write papers on neuroscience, so I'm not the best reference on that. What would you recommend? I mean, a book, a website, a seminar, what?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a couple of really good books. There's an author called Claire Eastham, who's one of my favorites, and she wrote a book called "Fuck, I Think I'm Dying," which is just the best title for a book about anxiety. And I read that book quite early on, and Claire's experience and reading about it kind of allowed me to start to think about my anxiety, or my experience of anxiety, I should say. That's another tip. I'll do that one next, but. In terms of why. So before I read Claire's book, I was very much like, I'm an anxious person, or this just keeps happening to me. But once I kind of understood a little bit about why, like, why am I an anxious person? Like, first of all, no one's an anxious person, right? That's not a thing. So why am I telling myself this story? Why am I feeling this way? And it helped me kind of like to relate it to my experiences and to my life and my thoughts and my feelings and all these sorts of stuff. So that was really useful. So yeah, "Fuck, I Think I'm Dying" by Claire Eastham is a really good book.
Very subtle.
Um,
A subtle title.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like you know what you're getting, right? Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
Is she
uh,
British? Do you know?
she is. Yeah, she's from Manchester. Yeah, yeah,
Is
she's
she still
great.
around?
Yeah, yeah, she's still. Yeah, she does like coaching around anxiety and stuff like that. She's very active
Any
on social
ideas if I
media.
can get a hold of her? Do you have? Would
I
you happen
I
to
can
have
I can do
access
you
to?
an email intro. Yeah, yeah, no problem at
I
all.
would. This could be a fun conversation for us.
I think so, right?
I
I
love
think
the
so.
title of
Yeah,
the book. Just
yeah,
based on the
yeah.
title. I mean, how can you
Yeah,
go
no,
wrong?
she really
All
knows
right.
her stuff. Yeah, and just I suppose while we're on tips, another thing that I found really
Yes.
useful was separating myself from anxiety. So I used to say like I have anxiety, I am an anxious person, and even changing that that wording. So instead of saying like I talk about, I can't do that because of my anxiety. Well, it's not my anxiety; it is just anxiety. I'm thinking of it as an experience that I just happen to be experiencing in that moment, rather than something I am or something I do. That would helped with that mental shift towards curiosity. It was like, hang on, this isn't me. This isn't in me. It's not like I don't carry it around. It's just I experience this. Let's maybe try and understand why I experience this, and let's see if we can turn the volume down on it.
Let me ask you a question. So the way I usually phrase that for patients, like if you have a broken leg, it's not like it's a broken leg syndrome. You have a broken leg. You're
Yeah.
feeling you're feeling pain. Okay. You're feeling anxious. Okay. It doesn't mean you have to be like that forever, right? Does it is that about what you're saying? I
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
I'm
That's
feeling
it.
it's not I am an anxious person, I'll be anxious forever. That's not helpful. Saying I feel anxious right now, you can actually do something. You put
That's
down whatever
it.
made you anxious. You go for a walk, see some beautiful things outside, and so on. All right.
Yeah.
Next tip.
It's
Two more
yeah.
tip.
Next.
Two more tips.
I like the saying that knowing something and feeling something are two different things. That took me quite a lot of learning, because I think sometimes you can know you're safe but not feel safe, right? And that took me a lot of and when we're told, for anxiety, you just need to do this and this, and that doesn't work. And then we tend to, rather than say, actually it's because it's like some shyster fucking internet guru who's trying to make money off me,
If
we
you
blame
only
ourselves.
buy this bracelet, you're not going to be anxious.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, yeah. But then when it doesn't work, we blame ourselves, right? So we go, "Oh, it's worked for the 50,000 people that follow them. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm broken. Maybe I'm just a piece of shit." We make it all about us and how bad we are, right? But sometimes you can know you're safe and not feel safe, and that's fine, right? There is a difference between knowing and feeling, and finding comfort. Finding your place within that
So
is
how
very,
did
very
you
useful.
how were you able to navigate that shift?
To get to not be scared of feeling scared, to just kind of like, sometimes big
Embracing it,
feelings.
right?
Yeah,
It's like you're
yeah,
embracing, and also self-compassion probably works with that, right?
yeah. And it's like, this feels really awful, but do you know what? It's not going to fucking kill me, right? It is just a feeling. Feelings don't kill people. They feel not. They don't feel nice. They feel horrible, but it's just a feeling, right? And just
And
kind
you
of
could change
leaning
it.
into
I mean,
that.
it's not going to be there
Yeah.
forever.
That's it. Because what we normally do is we dip our toe in the water, and then when it's too hot, we whip our hand straight out, right? So I feel a little bit anxious. Oh, I've got to get out of this straight away. And it was just learning to, like, I'm just going to sit with this for a bit, and I'm just going to breathe into it, and I'm going to lean into it. And then with compassion, I'm going to slowly back out, and I'm just going to build up that tolerance to experience over time.
I love your whole approach to this.
Thank you.
So it's interesting. So the way I look at it, I mean, I've actually developed similar coping mechanisms, and then it's like my particular thing is I look at anxiety, PTSD, schizophrenia as all part of overactive sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight nervous system. I can reset it by doing the procedures I do, but that's not the only way to treat it. Clearly, obviously, you're an example of that. I mean, when you've gone way to suicidal route and now you seem like a happy guy, you're smiling all the time, which is amazing. I'll love to see that. Um, cool. So I wanted to thank you for doing that. I mean, it's like I think this was a very different podcast for me because usually I do much more sciencey stuff, but I think this is amazing. So we'll cut that up a little bit. And I think if you don't mind, we'll share it with our network. Maybe you can share it with yours. But I think
Yeah, of
those are
course.
really
Yeah.
good. The advice is beautiful. And I think it's realistic and you're proof you're alive, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Oh, thank
simple
you.
as that. And the suicide rates are spiking everywhere in the globe at this point. And there is a huge need for this kind of advice and this kind of a approach. And then it's possible, that so if people like
Yeah.
if my mother had that approach, she'd still be alive probably. So, I admire what you're doing. I think it's amazing. And
Thank you.
you're a great living proof of that, which is beautiful. If you can connect me to that lady with the book,
Yeah, yeah. I'll do a little email introduction or something. Yeah, no problem at all.
I think we're gonna have a fun discussion.
I think so too, right? I think so too.
You know what her background is? Is
um,
she a psych
no, background's publishing. I believe.
publisher?
Yeah, yeah.
Fine.
And now
And
writing
it's
and coaching.
Hannah, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. Which is great, actually. In many ways, I think clinicians who do coaching are forced to a certain style of thinking, right? Like psychoanalysis, you have to do this whole analysis, and it takes 20, 30 years, if ever. Here, you just want it to work. You don't care about ego, superego, or whatever. Anyway,
yeah. That's
on
it.
that note, I would like to thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a pleasure. I know we would have a great time, and at least I had a great time. So thank you. And we'll talk soon.
Oh, mate, thank you for having me. I had a great time too, and yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
Cheers, mate.